Now on ITV1, we pay tribute to our Thora, Dame Thora Hird, who died on the 15th of March.
Hello, Dame Thora Hird, who died a few weeks ago at the age of 91, was one of this country's best-loved actresses. She could be comic and tragic, often both at the same time. Morecambe born, theatre bred, she was a gift for writers and an inspiration to thousands through her religious programmes. She was tap dancing at the end of World War I, a star at the end of World War II, and as recently as 2000, a BAFTA winner for Best TV Actress. This South Bank show was first broadcast in the mid-90s, when Thora Hird was in her early 80s, and she continued to work until the end of her life. As the writer Alan Bennett once said, she was a true national treasure.
There is nothing like a day.
Will you drink, mynheer?
Thank you, Thora. What is there to eat?
Meatless ham sandwiches.
Another flaming fiasco!
I wish I was ready for bed. All washed and in a clean nightdress and a bottle in. All sweet and crisp and clean. Like when I was little.
So you were born in Morecambe?
Born in Cheapside, that is now defunct, so there's no blue, black.
What is it called? The Sand Groningen?
Sand Groningen. Sand hyphen Groningen.
The Morecambe anthem. You must be one of the few people who know the words and the tune of the Morecambe anthem.
Will you believe? Now, I know I'm 83 in a fortnight, so, you know, a lot of people won't have lived with the age, but the people who were my age group that year, we used to have a carnival here, you see. Well, this was one year. I used to say to everybody when I came back, you remember dear old Morecambe? No.
Jollity everywhere,
Folks don't die, and that's the reason why. Morecambe to Morecambe is clever, that isn't it? And nobody knew it.
Morecambe to Morecambe by the sea.
Frida Miller. We went to school together, didn't we? Well, Margaret Mount. How nice to see you. Harry Marshall. Oh, Harry. Madam Warrington. How are you, darling?
Very well, thank you.
Now, I've known Archie Collis all my life. I mean, from this size when one could know anybody. We were in the amateurs together. I was the comedian and he was the comic, alleged.
Your dad was worse than you.
Was he?
Yeah. I remember when the Warblers gave Desert Song,
Yeah.
he was producing.
Yeah.
So to come off that scene and they went on to a desert scene, you see.
Yeah.
So the Red Shadow went on and the 40 Riffs, you remember the
Yeah,
lads,
40
Tommy
of them,
Langridge and
yeah,
all
I
that
do,
gang,
I do.
went on and he said, this is the edge of the desert. And your dad shouted from the side, is it hell? Wait till the ruddy cloth comes down.
But used to be a royalty theatre there, didn't they?
No, they didn't. We're just arguing it was here.
Taught me to tap dance, remember?
Well, I taught everybody in Morecambe to tap dance.
I don't have television now.
No.
But you made me laugh in that.
Well, I don't know why I'm bothering
country
talking
one.
to you then, because it's costing us £2,000 a minute
Well,
to
they
shoot
must
this.
have shut it
You
off
just
then,
cost
shouldn't
us
they?
about 8,000
It's a
quid.
waste of money.
Lovely.
It's a bit rough.
I am.
I'm glad I never had it for a lover, I'll tell you. This is a bit rough, it's Archie. They were on tour, you see, so they didn't have any children. My mother said, no, while we're on tour, I'm not having a baby in a different place every week. And so they came to Morecambe, where my mother had lived. First job he got was the Bear Bathing Pool, as I put a good name. He was a very good swimmer, but he was there very little time because the West End Pier Is it still there? I didn't notice. Is the West End Pier still?
No, it isn't.
Nothing?
Yeah.
Another pier gone. Well, the West End Pier wanted a manager and he went there. From there he went to the Alhambra, and there's no inside of that, is there? And from there he went up another rung of the ladder and went to the Royalty. And that was, I was born while he was at the Royalty, so he left the Royalty to go on the pier. But the pier days would need us to sit here for a week. Never and I, our lives were the pier.
I know you'll find it hard to believe, and I know you people watching will find it hard to believe, but here was one of the most magnificent piers in any seaside place.
The Northern Taj Mahal.
The Northern Taj Mahal.
How did you get on with your mother? You speak extraordinarily warmly of her all the time in the book.
Well,
and, so just a little of that.
People came to my mother for everything. This was an actress, a good Christian. All day, this is all day. That front door was opened at 7:30 in the morning. Imagine it in these days of the trouble and everything. You there, Mrs. Hurd? What is it, Isaac? Because with all these names in the street. Well, my mother says, could you just lend the 2 candles? We were like a shop. My father said, you'll drop dead doing for people, won't you? She said, I hope so.
Did you ever see her unhappy in any way, or was she always?
See my mother unhappy.
She sounded very contented and from the book extremely.
Well, she was a Morecambe girl, you see, and my granddad was a fisherman, and when we say a trawler, I mean a trawler is a boat with a sail, not even with an engine for boiling the shrimps, which they do. I can't find out. Do they still catch shrimps at Morecambe? Do you know?
Yes, a
They
bit
do,
limited now.
yeah. But in those days, of course, they brought them off and boiled them in the backyard in a thing, because they're grey, as you know. Or am I teaching you something, Mr. Bragg? You don't know, grey shrimps, and boil them till they're pink, you see.
What about your father? Was he very strict with you?
I remember when Nev was about 13 or 14, he went to Storey's Institute in Lancaster school. He's got the white flannels on for the cricket outfit, the maroon cap. He's coming down the pier. My headmistress always used to correct me. Thora, the pier does not go up and come down on the pier or off the pier. Corrected every day with that one. And he's coming down the pier with Warner Goslin, his friend. Lovely name that for the Bills, Warner Goslin. With the fag, you know. My father's coming over the pier and sees him. Just as he passes, he said, you enjoying that cigarette? Now, if my father said it like that, you just might as well give in, because you were going to cop it if it was the next week. You wouldn't forget. When he came into his tea, he said to Nev, was that supposed to be clever then? He said, well, I'm sorry, Dad. He said, sorry, nothing. I'll just tell you this. He said, if I catch you smoking again, I will make you eat it. So remember that. Oh, Jim, my mother said, going into some part or other, you see. Oh, Jim. Well, I suppose it would be 3 weeks after. But my father is coming down Cheapside where we live, and Nev's going up it. And my father just touched his sword and said, go back. So I came back and he stood in the kitchen, and Nev looking very sheepishly, and he said, eat that. Oh, Jim, it'll make him ill, says my mother, you know. He says, I don't care if it kills him. I've warned him, eat it. Well, I can see my brother now putting that fag end and standing chewing it. He didn't say chew him, he said eat that. And I could see he was going to be sick.
Excuse me telling you what
I stand to be corrected.
You must do, or said to be corrected, because
yeah.
That's where the theatre was.
Right, lovely. Thank you very much.
But it is disconcerting,
It is.
because it was a cul-de-sac with our back street, and if you go down there, there is the back street.
So you came through the back door here, there is the outside loo, with the newspapers cut on a little bit of string. No varnish left on the seat because it was scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. Right, here was the washing boiler. You know that the fire is under. My mother did the sheets and things in. Right, now then, we're in the yard proper here. So the yard proper came along here, and just along here on the right was the door into the kitchen, the door with a sneck. But what is more interesting is that if you glance just along here, let us say where that blue door is there, was the ginnel. Now that went through into the front of Cheapside. Just further along were 2 doors that went into the theatre. So when I was in rep there, I could make up, look, wonder if I'd overdone it, run down here in a count of 10, out that door, in this door, into my mother's bedroom. Sit down, she said, and I'd sit on her bed and she'd all this.
Did you enjoy putting on makeup and, as it were, being somebody else?
Yes, I loved anything like that.
You look lovely.
Oh, you do. You look regal. No wonder they don't complain in here.
In A Deal of Loving, you're almost unrecognisable there, aren't you? I mean,
With the black wig?
Yeah.
I should go get myself a cup of tea now.
I lie awake at night, Mother. I reproach myself. I say my mother can't possibly be as hopeless as I imagined. But you are. You are.
You are a washing machine face cow.
Oh!
I'm the mother in Mother's Pride, you know. Yes, they named it after me.
You've acted several mothers in plays and also in films.
I shall just have to say it, Mr. Ace. She was just common.
Don't forget to write. Don't catch cold.
You don't understand us women, do you, Bill?
Do you draw on your own mother for that?
Well, some of them I couldn't draw on my own mother. I mean, I played Dirk Bogart's
In The
mother.
Swagman, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was about his second film.
Take that hat off in the house.
What's wrong about it?
I don't like it.
And that was a mother, you know, very concerned about him and everything. Well, that was all right. Not the way my mother would have been concerned.
If her father had been alive, I doubt if there'd have been a wedding at all.
In A Kind of Loving, you're a
Well, that film. I'm kidding, not kidding you, Melvin. You'd have thought I'd never been in anything in my life till that. And I never thought it was such a big part. I thought the importance of the film was the first film John Schlesinger had directed, apart from a little railway one he'd done that was very good.
Terminus. Yeah.
And every time they show that where he's being sick over the furniture.
You filthy pig. You filthy, disgusting pig.
I mean, I can just imagine my Auntie Nellie. My Auntie Nellie would have shot him. But you saw the disgust of this woman, you see.
What about The Entertainer, Mother?
Well, that was... I did copy somebody I knew here in Morecambe. And at school, the concerts. You know, when parents come and watch the concerts, she'd get up and say, "Get to the front, Dorothy."
Oh, I knew she had it in her then. That's why I thought she'd better have elocution lessons. Well, she started those before she started going to school. Oh, she's worked hard. Of course, she's got her head screwed on. Well, you'll have seen that. You see, she wants to get up. So I'm quite sure she will. All she needs is a little push.
Now, another little bit of glorious Morecambe. Over there, the Winter Gardens. One of the greatest buildings in the country. Even when I was a little girl, my mother used to tell me about the years before, when there was an aquarium, billiard rooms downstairs and everything. In 1934, it reopened. I went to the opening night, and actually that's where I saw him, you see. Because Jimmy came with a big orchestra, 16-piece orchestra for the variety part of there. And I will admit, as I saw him coming to the orchestra pit, I thought he looked very nice. And before I left the building, I thought, well, he's not going to get away if I have anything to do with it. And Melvin, that's how it all began. I was in rep, £1 a week. If we were down first, I went to my mother's next door, and Jimmy would join. And we'd have a little 7-minute walk, 7 minutes, over Western Road Bridge, over Hodson's Meadow to Wood Hill, not a house to be seen. Well, you see this hill we come to, it's a little hill like it was. If you build me a house on here, I'll marry you, I said. If you'll build me a house, we hadn't fought between us, truthfully, you see. I think it was 7 weeks later. There is a foundation dug. We can't live there, now nobody else can live there but those people. And very quietly he said, "Did you ever think you'd have to be married?" And I nearly hit him on the him. Morecambe's virgin. But don't put your fag on the end of the piano, will you? Because they always used to, the pianist, you know. Ours is a nice house. La da da dee da dee. See you. This is the ad lib till ready, you see.
Ours is a nice house, ours is. What a nice little house ours is. There's a roof on the top of that pretty little shack. £495.
Plus £5.
For flush doors. We saw Harry in the Grand Hotel one night and we're chatting to him because we'd known him forever, and we'd been married about nearly a year. And Scotty said, well, why don't you come down to our place for your supper, Harry, if your parents are away? You see, so Harry said, yes, all right. He did, and he stayed 10 months. If it had looked exactly as it was, I might have felt just a bit weepy today. But I don't feel of it as though we ever lived here.
It's totally strange.
Never mind, I hope the love's in it that we had. It was great, wasn't it? And then Scotty went to live in it 3 weeks before we were married, to dig the garden.
You were well looked after, weren't you?
I am now. Oh, I am now. And you see, you need it a little bit, Mel, and if you've arthritis, it isn't that you're an invalid or anything, but there's certain things I can't do. And I'm all the time. Scotty? Yes. Could you help me get my right foot stocking on? That's the thing I can't do, because I've had this hip done twice. There, I'm a bit spoiled.
When you were in rep, George Formby was in the audience, then a colossal star in this country anyway, and he and his wife came round and said that they wanted to take you for a screen test.
There's me with my 50-shilling tailor pinstripe suit on, not as good as that, but that pattern. And my Auntie Molly's fox fur hair and my Auntie Martha's fox fur. I look like Bud Flanagan, you know, 5 feet with 2 furs hanging. They bring me on, make me up. It was Basil Dearden, God rest him, who was going to direct Will Hay in Black Sheep of Whitehall, his first film, not Will's. And he comes off the side. It's a great, great, marvellous mark. 10 times I've done it. Now this time, he said, he'll say, where will you go, Lydia? And I want you to, I shall go to London and bugger you. He said, you know the sort of thing. And he said, where will you go, Lydia? And I said, I shall go to London and bugger you. And I started it politely. I said, that's 11 times I've done this. If I haven't done it right now, you're only being polite. Look, I said, I didn't ask to come here. I was in rep, very happy, and I do all this. And somebody said, cut, and I didn't know what that meant. They said, the Rushes Theatre, 10 o'clock in the morning. Rushes Theatre? What's a Rushes Theatre? And I sat there, and I saw myself say, I shall go to London and bugger you because I never asked to come here, you've asked me, and I'm spieling it off till the cut. And that's what got me a contract. Can you believe? I came back to here, and the tea used to be a big trolley. You're not old enough. A trolley on the platform. You see, sandwiches, buns, and all sorts. And
this is after the
big
screen
urn.
test.
This is when
after
I'm
the
coming.
Screen test, yeah.
This is when I'm coming back.
Travelling third class.
Third in the.
You couldn't take your hat off because there wasn't room on the rack.
True.
That's right.
And the hat was 9 and 11, and it was. And I couldn't, it wasn't that there wasn't room on the rack. I thought, if I take my hat off, my hair will all be crushed.
You said there wasn't room on the rack in the book.
Well, there wasn't room on the rack, but the point inside me was, what will I look like? Well, who the devil who didn't know me was going to get? The thing was...
But you knew you were a plutocrat film star, really, didn't you?
Well, I felt a bit different coming back, you see. And the furs, don't forget the furs, because...
2 furs.
When I asked for a cup of tea...
Through the window?
Yes, I think it was... Where would it be?
Crew, you said.
Crew, that's right. Threepence, the tea. And I handed the money, and the furs slithered off and landed it as though they were copulating on the platform.
You clean stairs, see? That's your job, cleaning stairs. I mend pipes. That's my job, mending pipes.
Yes, I know, but you're not.
Not you, miss, I'm getting at her. I know cleaners, always shoving their nose in. Comes to working half in doorways and half out.
Here, knock it.
Yes, please do knock it.
Cleaning does seem to be a bit of an obsession, Thora, doesn't it?
Yes. Now, in life, it's an obsession.
In life and in art, in both.
As I've got older, it's disappointed me a bit that I can't... I used to think nothing of sort of going through the house in a day.
What do you think you're saying in your book was when you're cleaning the steps, you could have all these marvellous dreams and fantasies, yeah.
And next door to us, Mrs. Holt, they only did the edges of their steps with white. They didn't bother with all this. And number 10, the next house to them, just did the sides. It was individual artistry.
Put a bit more on there, because when this is dried, you've got the smooth finish. It's like cake making, really. 98% of the parts I've ever played, I've been in 103 films. I've seen the character somewhere. This great building here, all of it, was the Lancastrian District Co-op Emporium. Big deal for Morecambe. The far end of it there, which was built in 1927, I was the cashier there. And it wasn't the pretty system with the cups, of course, because it's too big a building. It was the suction system. And it was a bit difficult because I couldn't see the customers there. We had a big cash office, whereas in the other little co-op in Queen Square, which is now gone, so we can't show you, I could see all the customers, and those are the people I've played. You look very smart, but is it a bit horsey, are we?
Yes, horsey.
A bit horsey, yeah. Yeah, well, I don't get a chance to play parts like that very often, you know. I did once, though, in Went the Day Well.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell me where the village policeman lives.
Yes, the cottage beyond the one with the porch.
Oh, thanks awfully. We have to see about billeting our men.
Looks as though I shall have company while you and Tom's on your honeymoon. Now, you behave yourself, my girl. Well, I'll do my best.
Oh, you don't live round here, do you? Yes. Are you a landlady? Well, that's what I was.
Oh.
In Basinful with the briny.
What? You mean you're going and leaving me on my own? Oh, you won't be lonesome now the cat's come back. Oh, by the way, she's finished off the luncheon meats. And when I left, she was just sitting down to the goldfish. So put that in your plant pot and prune it.
Now, I have played this. I remember this woman every time I play this sort of part.
It's the biological action, you know. Oh, and I'll tell you something else. Sometimes you don't need to wash things at all. They're marvellous.
We had one assistant. He should have been retired years before. Old Mr. Tyson, 70-odd. White apron right down to his insteps, you know. Shuffled, he didn't walk, he shuffled along. And, of course, in those days, again, like before you were born, the visitors would go into boarding houses but buy their own food outdoors and take it in, you know. So they'd come across the co-op in Queen Square, tea, sugar, butter, all the thing. And this one's got beautiful fur collar on her coat. I can see her now, a beautifully dressed woman. And the bread didn't come in till about 10 o'clock, and she said, "A large loaf, please." Well, it would be Tom Tyson. He shuffles there. And she said, "If you hadn't been so old, it'd have been sacked 1,000 times, I tell you." She said, "A large white loaf." So he shuffles back. Now, there's one left from the Saturday. This is a Monday. You could have thrown it across the shop. You wouldn't, a crumb wouldn't have come off it, you see. So he bangs it on the counter. And she said, oh, no, I'm sorry to trouble you. Have you a fresh one? Now, the 4.5 halfpenny £2 loaf was at that period. And he looked at us, he was only a little fella, he said, 3.5 halfpenny? No, she said, no, I wasn't wanting cheaper bread, but I would like a fresh loaf if you have one. And he went, "Twopence interest you?" And no, she said, "Nothing interests me, only a fresh loaf." And he pushed it out and said, "Do you keep hens?" And I am in that box, killing myself with laughing.
Folks don't die, that's the reason why. Welcome to Morecambe by the sea.
For backache, rheumatic and muscular aches, pains and inflammation, sometimes you want maximum strength pain relief. The power of Ibuleve is used by more people than any other pain-killing gel. A formula so strong, it's only available from pharmacies. Ibuleve Maximum Strength for pain relief without pills.
Otex eardrops disperse earwax and can avoid syringing. Ask your pharmacist for the UK's #1 selling eardrops, Otex.
In America, this horns gesture is a celebration, but in Italy, it would be rather an insult. Red here signals bad luck, for the player sent off at least. Red here in China is lucky. These envelopes contain money. At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge, particularly when it comes to your money, because what we learn in one country can directly benefit our customers in another. HSBC, the world's local bank.
Monsieur Gambu, vous ne l'emporterez pas. C'est parfait. Vous partez déjà?
Oui, madame. C'est fini.
The greatest love story ever told.
Zhivago.
Dr. Zhivago on video.
Ravishing.
3 lives torn apart by lust and betrayal. Starring Keira Knightley, Hans Matheson and Sam Neill.
What have you done to that girl?
Dr. Zhivago. Buy it on video and DVD.
Persil aloe vera, created for delicate skin. A drop of nature, awash with kindness.
The funding from National Lottery has benefited all UK mountain rescue teams. It has actually saved lives. When you find someone, it's the greatest buzz in the world. It's just no feeling like it. And we're going to tell you about Lotto Hot Picks. Hot Picks? Lotto Hot Picks. Come on, Tiger.
First of all, you pick 2, 3 or 4 numbers.
Match 2 numbers from the Lotto draw and you win £40.
3 numbers, you win £450.
You match your 4 numbers, get up to a whopping £7 grand.
What can we do with £7 grand?
Swap this for a hammock in Barbados.
Win big prizes for fewer numbers.
A Lotto Hot Picks.
Yes.
Even though business is in uncertain times, you can still guarantee, just as you take a new prospect around your building, things don't quite go to plan.
And this is where it all happens.
And you can also be certain with the new BT business plan, you need pay no more than 10p for most UK fixed line calls. Call 0800 333 300.
Moving on quite a bit to when you were established, and there were these great Blackpool seasons, which were, I mean, I used to go in the 50s with my father on holidays to Blackpool, and there were magnificent shows, boats on the stage. And
14 live shows.
That's right. We used to go try to get in 2 shows a night. But you were there, and the writer, your luckiest writer was Walter Greenwood, and your luckiest co-star was Freddie Frinton.
Yes.
Can you just talk about those times a bit, and the Walter Greenwood plays, the big hits you had there, on the #1 tours all around the place? Because those were big times, weren't they? We're talking about the end of the 50s, early 60s, I think.
Well, they were, you see, and Walter Greenwood wrote for me, which was very nice, and Thora wrote for me, because a lot of his things, he'd say, that doesn't seem quite right, so we would both write it, but I never begrudged it because I was going to work it, you know.
Hey, Harry, I wish you'd serve some of that beer in here as makes folks sing.
It's the same beer in here, they're knocking back in concert room, and they're singing their heads off up there.
There were 4 sons, all Lancashire, and Ada Thorpe, very Lancashire. Not been asked to the funeral, so that was the mood. And one of the sons was married to a Cockney. Well, as far as Ada was concerned, she shouldn't have been allowed to breathe, you see.
And only just come back from a funeral?
You could sing a hymn.
And the landlord says, well, I think on the day we're burying Mrs. Hardy, we'll stop the rowing and why not a couple of verses of a favourite hymn?
Come along, I'll start you off. And don't forget the harmony.
When the mists have rolled in splendour from the beauty of the hills.
And just near the end of it, there is a note that goes a bit high. And one night in Blackpool, I saw this packet of salt, because the husband had just brought me a packet of crisps with the stout. And I saw this and I just took it and stuck it in my ear like that.
We shall know each other better when the mist shall roll away.
The laugh went on half the interval. It was a very funny play, it was Saturday Night at the Crown. Come on, it was funny. And it was 10 laughs a page, which are too many. And a lot of people, and probably pros listening to this, would say, oh, not for a comedy, there can't be too many. Well, they can, because people start to ache and they're tired. 7, you'll allow 10. No. Every actress should do twice nightly at Blackpool for a season, or Torquay, or Bournemouth, although those two are a little bit more refined. But any actress who's getting any of this about her, get on with the twice nightly, because if it's a 3-act play, when you've done 2, you think, oh, I've another to do. No, I haven't, I've another 4.
There is the Opera House, the Winter Gardens, the Grand Theatre down there, and further along there, the Hippodrome. Well, we were all playing twice nightly, 6:15, 8:45, and it was all right for the first houses because people would stroll along and go into the theatres. But you get that pack of people all coming out at the same time as all the pack of people for the second house waiting to go in. Well, you couldn't move out here. And the police would come and, in my case, they would say, Thora, could you cut 4 minutes off the show this week? And I'd cut off 1 week. Ken Dodd, if he was at the Opera House, Morecambe and Wise were at the Hippodrome there one season when I was playing here. And this is what we had to do to get the people out and in. For the summer season, Thora Hurd and Freddie Frinton.
Oh, me? Oh, go to bed in the shop? No, I can tell it's good be looking.
Oh, no, if you wouldn't mind. It's the only way to make sure that the mattress is suitable. You see, you've got to get the feel of the bed, you know what I mean. Oh, just a minute. Excuse me, it's another customer. Oh, don't hurry away, though. I do so want you to be satisfied. Please take as long as ever you like. I'm just coming.
Thank you. Hey, come on, this is lovely. Come on, you don't know what you've been missing all your life. You don't... Hey, yeah. Take your shoes off when you're getting on their bed.
They're clean. I wiped them on their carpet.
You've got to walk before you can run.
Well, if ever I see you running, love, I'll know that it's nearly closing time.
My perfect husband. My brother wrote that play for me. Henry J. Mary used as a writing name.
Why can't you get a steady job, love? You know, once you got over the initial shock, you'd soon get used to it.
Oh, you do get morbid at times, Thora. You know I have to be careful what I do with my bad back. Crumbs, anyone hearing you would think I was frightened of work.
I didn't say that, but you should see how pale you've just gone at the mention of the word.
It was Act 2, I remember this very well, second house. And I suddenly heard, oh, do, or something like that. And then just a count of, I'd say 2 or 3 after, I heard, do! And I wondered what the devil was going on in the theatre. And it wasn't until I got upstairs in my dressing room, one of the checkers came round and she said, we're sorry about the disturbance, Miss Hurd, but a lady was laughing so much in the upper circle, she laughed her teeth out. And they dropped down and they hit a fellow with a bald head in the pit. I mean, I know it doesn't sound true. True.
You played the part of the mother in a play called Flowers for the Living in a small but very prestigious theatre in London. Why was that part important for you? Why do you look back at it, as I know you do, and think this was an important part for me?
Well, because the part I played of Mrs. Holmes was a Cockney, and she was a Cockney who had a husband. He wasn't a rotten fella, but I mean the betting and the drink and all the rest of it. And her daughter had been in the ATS, and Dad soon went through the gratuity as they got when they'd finished, and that sort of thing. And this woman had really high hopes for the daughter.
I just wanted to know what was on your mind.
I don't know what you mean. It's different, of course, coming home. I've got to get used to it, that's all.
Do you think you will?
And to go back to my father, he saw that. And in the second act, I got around like you never on a crying and out. And when we got home at night, he said to me, it was a hell of a round you got, wasn't it, in Act 2? I said, yes, wasn't it? Now, I shouldn't have said it like that, you see. And he said, quite wrong, of course, quite wrong. Because, bear in mind, my family, none of them, including that dear gentleman I tell I love every night of my life, have never said, oh, you were best. They've never did anything like that, my family, to get a very good out of them. But I knew that if I'd been rotten, they would have said, give it up.
Anyway. My dad's sitting there at home. He mentions everybody in the play, and perfectly. Oh, that boy, he said, who played the... Good. Now, that was a beautiful cameo. It goes all through. And I realised, you know, he's never mentioned me. He'd wanted to come to the first night, came down to London from here, went down to London. And I said, please, Dad, don't come to the first night. Give me till Wednesday to play it as I think you might, which he did. I was always sorry I never had him on that first night, but never mind. Anyway, so he sees it on the Wednesday, he sees it again on the Friday, and we're now speaking of the Friday. But he said to me on the Wednesday about the exit, he said, do you know, if you were very clever, you would go out to a church. A church. I said, yes, but I've just said, never mind what you just said.
You mean to total silence?
Oh, that's what he meant, yes. He said, that would be perfection.
And they were applauding you going out after a big emotional scene.
Well, it was because the line I even remember now was, when Lil comes back to the boy who she was going to marry, and then she tries to kill him, or she says, she won't come back, will she? He creeps out, you see, and he says, very nice, lovely that, in the middle of a scene. Well, of course, the first night I went off to, and then 2 or 3 more, but nothing, just embarrassment, really. That's the Thursday night after he's seen it on the Wednesday, you see, Dad. So he's coming in on the Friday, and I would like to say that I went off to dead silence, but I didn't. But I just went off to somebody starting and stopping. Well, Dad. Very good. And he gets to the door, but being an actor, he always had to make a King Lear exit, you know what I mean? He gets to the door and he said, you're a wonderful actress. I've lived to see you play like this, and went. But me, being a bit embarrassed, he'd said it. I said, could you give me that in writing? Right. In a little while, 10 minutes after I go, and I took him the blanket under him in bed because he's turned this way and it's off his back, and I kissed him, good night, God bless. He was dead the next morning. Now, suppose he'd never said that to me. Might never have stayed in the business. This altered my life, that part. It must have altered my heart because it was like a Bennett nearly. Friends, doing things together.
Doing what together?
Having tea in Marshall and Snellgroves.
Having tea in Marshall and Snellgroves isn't lesbianism.
It's only liking being with other women.
Not in Marshall and Snellgroves.
Well, where then?
Bed. You brought the subject up.
Well, so... Anyway, I've been in bed with other women.
Who?
Your Auntie Phyllis, for a start.
Auntie Phyllis isn't women. Besides, when were you in bed with Auntie Phyllis?
During the air raids. Supposing the same words had been in another shape, and she said, well, that doesn't mean she's a lesbian. Your Auntie Mary and I often had to sleep together during the air raids. Nothing. But a quick reply of, well, that's nothing. I slept with your Auntie Phyllis all during the air raids. It is funnier to think of it like this. Neville Smith's face I can see now. I know that shot was ruined when we were recording, twice, by Russell Harty, God rest him, and I wouldn't say that now he's dead. He was at the far end watching this, and in the end they said, Russell, would you mind going out, please? We're just...
In A Cream Cracker Under the Settee, she plays a character who's quite harsh and repressed, and who's virtually tidied her husband into the grave.
I'm going to save that cream cracker. And I'm going to show it to her next time she starts on at me about Stafford House. I'll say, don't Stafford House me, lady. This cream cracker was under the settee, and I've only got to send this cream cracker to the Director of Social Services, and you will be on the carpet, same as this cream cracker.
A lot of actresses would try and pipe in an edge of niceness. It would come out in various ways. They'd be concerned about how nice the frock was or the wig or something. And Thora's not immune from that, because she actually said, would there be any way of showing, you know, that, or my writing in a bit to show that this character had once been happy or had a nice side to her. And I said, well, it would be better if we didn't do it like that. And she then just went ahead and did it as written. That's actually quite remarkable, and it's a gift to any writer or a director.
What things do you find in Alan Bennett that you enjoy most in?
Oh, well, I find in Alan Bennett, let us for a moment speak of Cracker, because there were so many things in that. You see, when I will tell you by page 3, I wondered why I ever married Walter, because I hated him at rehearsals. And when she had the line where she said, I don't think losing the baby worried Walter much. Well, I don't think. Because it was then he talked about getting a dog. I could have killed him if he'd been standing there. I would have hit him and said, don't you dare compare a dog with a baby we've lost.
She's very modest, and there's never a lot of what I'd call splother.
He came to rehearsal one morning in a beautiful Crombie overcoat. Really, really. Well, I'm saying I think it was a Crombie, but it was an expensive overcoat. And the sleeves were here. And it was a bit long. I thought, he seemed to be out to dinner last night and picked the wrong one up off the coat stand, you know. I said, I like your coat, Alan. Nice, isn't it? It's nice. I said, it's beautiful. Well, I said, it is nice. Well, it would be on somebody else. I said, is it yours? And he said, oh, yes. He said, I bought it in a sale. And you knew then why I got it. It's like the beautiful cricket boots with the Savile Row suit, you see. I'm not saying to you, because he doesn't know how to dress. Of course he knows how to dress. They're comfortable. So that is the sort of thing he would put in a show.
She's as inventive in her own way as anybody brought up in the improvisational school of theatre. In Intensive Care, there's a scene where there's some quite ordinary dialogue in a hospital waiting room, and she transformed it simply by asking for a flask of coffee and doing the dialogue interspersed with blowing and cooling down the coffee, and it made it much funnier than it actually was.
It's Frank all over, going down fighting. He loved life. He won't go without a struggle.
Yes.
It's their eldest daughter. Just choosing some loose covers in Schofields. Collapsed, suspected brain hemorrhage. Their other son's a vet.
The disappointment, Thora, for a lot of people who knew you when you started to be a star at the age of 8, is that you didn't go into variety and continue with the singing and dancing and the whole of that.
I was 6. I mean, it sounds ridiculous now, because you say, well, that's ridiculous as a child of 6. But may I tell you that I went to a school where we had a big dancing class. There was also a ballroom dancing class on a Friday, really where the little boys came across and said, please, may I have the pleasure of this dance? Took you back to your place. Miss Nelson used to say, take the girls back to their places. Thank you, said. You know, it sounds old-fashioned now, but it was rather lovely. My father being the boss on the pier, he had suggested, and it had happened, to have the auditorium, which, this was an aerial span like Drury Lane, changed it to a ballroom, because he said in the 1920s people are dancing mad now. He was the first man to have 2 bands, Jimmy Little and Ben Bolton, and as one band stopped, like Horsey Keep Your Tail Up, they started Does the Spearmint Lose Its Flavour.
Did you do a lot of monologues with pianists at the time?
Well, I did when I was little, and then when I did monologues when I was older, I wrote them myself because I really couldn't afford to pay anybody. And some people, and me, if you write, you learn. You can learn better if you write. And I wrote this monologue, and a pianist I knew, like our dear Bert in Morecambe here, put the music to, and I worked it at night. And it went down so well, I have to say, that I'd worked it for quite a bit.
Can you give us a few verses of it now? This is
Well-
a bit unfair because you didn't know this was coming, but could
No, I
you?
didn't. Can you give us a few chords, sweet bird, in your inimitable way? Yes. Now, I'll tell you a tale. It'll make you turn pale. It's a tale full of pathos and strife. Well, it's a tale of an actress while trying to get on. In short, it's the tale of my life. Now, my parents were clever, of course, they were pros, and the theatre was well in my blood. And my father, an actor, was top of the bill, and he worked when he could, if he would. As a child, my ambition had only one trend, to appear at Drury Lane, and to hear cries of Thora each night without end, and take curtains again and again. Once a panto I strayed, and a big hit I made, and each night I took bow after bow. The producer was crude and exceedingly rude when he cast me to type as the cow. Then along one day came the ringmaster's young son. He was tall, he was dark, he was bad. But he told me of things that I knew naught about, and of pleasures that I'd never had. So I met him one night by the old rustic bridge, and I knew there was something astir. Well, I found out too late. Well, perhaps it was fate, but I tripped and I slipped. What a cur. As he helped me to rise, he looked into my eyes and said, "Oh, to possess one so fair. Let us chuck our discretion away, pretty one." So I did, for a quid, then and there. Last verse coming up. There's a lot. We can't go on all night with this. But that's the sort of thing I wrote, you see. I'm very proud of being a Lancastrian because there's no doubt as a county, and I'm going to get shot for this, they are funny people. We got an errand boy at the court when I worked there, Willie Taylor. These assistants were all comics. They were all stand-up comics and they're all right. Great, the cop. So he says, "What shall I do first, Mr. Rose?" That was the manager. He says, "Oh, ask Mr. Ormerod." Well, one of the comics, he said, "You know Edgar Bell's, the hardware shop up Queen Street?" He said, "Of course I do." He says, "Well, will you go in for a large tin of frog's knee paste?" Frog's knee paste, you see. And he said, "Frog's knee paste," because the lad didn't realise. He goes up, and I said to George Ormerod, "You rotten egg." Oh, he said he'd got to learn to be one of us, to be much worse than that. Comes back about after 10 minutes. He says, "Mr. Bell says, I have to tell you sorry, he's only small ones. Should I have brought one?" And he said, "No, get on." So the following day, I said something to him. He says, "Willie, come here." And it was a concert, you know. He said, "Go up Queensway." He said, "And if Edgar Bell, he may not have this. It's a bit difficult, but then move on, go to Edmondson's." "Yes, all right," he said. And his cap was too big, I remember it. "What am I going for?" He said, "You're going for a bottle, listen, and a large bottle of essence of cart shafts," you see. And he says, "Essence of cart. Could you write it down?" He said, "Well, I will. One large bottle of essence of cart shafts." So with the cap here, you know, he got the apron down to his feet. Off he goes. I said, "You are rotten." "No," he said, he thinks there is it. We don't want somebody daft like that working here."
About 17 years ago, you started what became, in a way, another career, which was a career as a religious broadcaster. How did that come about, and why did you want to do it?
Well, very simply, and I didn't know I wanted to do it. The BBC asked me to present this programme, Praise Be.
How did they know you were religious? I mean, what was
They
your
didn't
reason?
know. Hello. What a lovely welcome back to our new series. The rousing chorus from To God Be the Glory, played by the International Staff Band of the Salvation Army. And we've got a new title this year too. Did you notice? Praise Be. Well, it's easier to say than Your Songs of Praise Choice. We've always found that a bit of a mouthful, haven't we? I'm very flattered that people stop me, and when I was doing Praise Be, it was every other person. "Oh, could you play What a Friend We Have in Jesus?" It cost my all this. But we went into Marks and Spencer's,
I suppose we were in 2 or 3 yards. A very tall lady who you'd cast as the vicar's wife. I've never seen a vicar's wife that would look like that, but you'd cast it for the theatre, with an equally tall girl who was obviously her daughter. Came forward and she said, "Is it Thora?" And I said, "Yes." And she went, "Oh, but this is in Marks and Spencer's." And I said, "Well, I'm not that ugly, am I?" And she said, "No, it's just..." And then you see, you've been a smart aleck and said that, not intended to, out of your embarrassment. And she said, "It's just well done for you." Right, so then she puts her arms here. She tells me her daughter is pregnant for the 4th time, has had 3 miscarriages, and I said, "Well, I'm sure you'll have this one, love." And so on, and she's telling me how she loves me and all this. There's a little woman there, about 4'9", a hill-toned Eden crop. And I don't know what which department it was, but she's looking through everything and chucking them about. Now, the lady has her arm like that, you see. She walks here, sees it me, comes, puts her head, the timing, you couldn't have done it in a play. Puts her head under here and just looks at me and she says, "Oh, hey, who's bloody lovely?" And darts off. She's off, she's gone, she said it. Mrs. Cryer is saying, because you see, never notices the head has been through here and gone. I've said a lot of prayers in my life I had no right to say, if I'd thought first. You see, my mother, the first heart attack, I was at the co-op, and in those days they used to run to work where I'd say, "Can you come home a minute, your mother's ill?" And nobody said, "No, you can't go. Go on, love," and see what it is. And I went home and my mother had had the heart attack and the doctor was there.
He's not that bad. It's just his manner.
He hasn't got any manners. He's an ass. Hello. Just finishing off, making her comfortable.
Oh, Jessie.
I know, Mum. They're very young. They've a lot to learn. I mean, it's like you just came along with the sheets and pillowcases, isn't it? They don't know how much fun you can be. They can't see inside you. All the love that's there.
Long, long, lonely world.
I know it is, Mum. It must be. I'll think of something. I promise you.
And as soon as I knew that the heart attack was over and everything, I went up to my bedroom. Well, I mean, you can pray anywhere. You can pray in Sainsbury's. I pray anywhere. But I went upstairs, went on my knees, and I begged of God to spare her, so we could show her how much we loved her by looking after her. Yes, loving. You see, I shouldn't have done that. For 8 years in agony. But you see, I shouldn't be emotional like this. All the we're in the right setting, aren't we? And a lot of prayers I should never have said, because you're a bit inclined, aren't you, when your faith is, and mine is, you know, the leading man up there, you're a bit inclined to think, well, I've only to ask, you know. Of course we don't. I should have more sense at my age. Aren't you nice? I love you.
That's the reason why, oh, come to Morecambe by the sea.